Hi, I'm Min from PonderEd. I started doing this thought process based learning video for lectures from a couple of times before, and then now since after the trip to the conference providing presentation and a workshop, I decided to use these slides that I made for the conferences. It's more organized so that I can deliver the methodology a little bit clearer. And so that means that I have to deal with the background that I did before and merging it together, but it will be shorter version. Now, this thought process-based education, learning and teaching, which teaching part I'm not gonna include in this section in lectures, that I'm gonna separately deal with it and just like in 10-minute or 15-minute videos later on. Now, this thought process-based learning and teaching methodology is all the theories in behind, and then everything that the methodology that I developed is based on my development. I mean, and my theory and my development. That means that in real world, that you're not going to be able to find the solution that I'm providing about here and with together with the brain development, the brain evolution, together with educational methods. Basically, as the brain evolved, education method also evolves together. So, but you will see how primitive brain function educational methodology that we are using in current education system, and I'm gonna go beyond it. Okay. So now, first of all, I'd like to provide some information about myself. So I haven't talked about myself officially in any lectures. And then I never talked about the development, how I started developing this thought process-based education. And then right now that I'm providing here. Initially, my background is in science, biochemistry and biophysics specifically. That I did my master's from Korea and I moved to US and I did my PhD in Washington State University in biochemistry and biophysics, doing X-ray crystallography, which is structure of the molecules. And at the time, I didn't really have any idea that what really is the project that I wanted to do, even though I was finishing up with a PhD. And I moved to New York to work for, her name is Hao, that professor in Cornell Whale Medical School in Manhattan, New York. That she is a part of the Cornell University, but the medical school is in at the time it is in the Manhattan in New York. So I moved there to work for her, and the topic is because the reason that I moved there is that her topic is cell signaling, which is close to the cancer related research. So I decided to go there and work for her. And as I worked in the cell signaling system, now my son was born in New York at the time, and he was born with hemophilia. So with hemophilia, it's one of the genetic disease, and I looked through that it is studied about the hemophilia, which is bleeding disorder, and I decided to develop some projects my own, for my own the purpose in the future, and especially for my son, that I decided to develop the project. But I needed someone who can actually support me to do so. So I looked around and I found that the Cornell University, one of the professor named Larry Shapiro, he's still there. Dr. Wu, she moved to Harvard, I think. Yeah, Harvard. And then Larry Shapiro, Dr. Shapiro, is still in the Columbia University. And when I moved there, he gave me his words saying that he's gonna support. He even supported me go to the World Congress of Hemophilia. World Federation of Hemophilia has a World Congress that about the hemophilia at the time, and then he supported me to go there and to learn about this about the hemophilia. So that was in Vancouver, and I learned a lot of new knowledge from that conferences about the hemophilia. So I started looking through this hemophilia project, how to develop it, and then I was kind of building onto it for like a couple of years, and while working for him and for the structural genomics, I was a lead scientist there. And as the time goes, my visa status is running out, and then my family had to decide where to go. So, and then we applied for the Canadian residency, and also preparing for the U.S. Green card application. And Canada gave us the approval earlier, so we came to Canada. And initially, I got a job in the Montreal, so National Research Council, but actual status was in the McGill. But I was worked in the National Research Council in Montreal. So while I was working there, and then involved in the structures and researches in there, one of the professor in Concordia University offered me that the lab spaces that I can use. So she actually provided the access to the lab so that I can start with the hemophilia research. So I started and doing some of the hemophilia researches there, but in the end, later we got the grant from Canadian Hemophilia Society, and at the time with the money I could go to the another conference in Istanbul to study a little more. And my project was to develop in the elongated factor, so like longer acting factors with my research. But as it goes, and then I got some of the results that shows a little clearer sign that I can do something about it. And then with some of I started building this project. That ownership of this project kind of came up, and the lab was not mine, even though the entire project is developed by me. The ownership is kind of came up, and kind of there was some of the argument. So after everything is surfaced, I just had to blow up the project, and then I was working National Research Council, and even though I was just doing extra time in my own time, like a weekend kind of stuff to do this hemophilia research, that's not really I didn't feel like it is just something that I constantly pursue and then stay in the National Research Council for working for well, my boss didn't say anything. He didn't really mention anything about it, and he didn't really said that I did something out of this work is not unethical or anything. He is actually supportive, and then he gave me his opinion and everything. But from myself, I couldn't really stay there, so that's why I came to Vancouver. And as I came to Vancouver, working for the one of the biotech company, actually the company environment isn't really something that I expected, and it didn't really work out for a while. I mean, after like a few months. So at that time, my son had hemophilia, and then my son was confirmed with autism spectrum disorder. So I had two choices. One, constantly going into the field, or to get the money, find some of the job and then get money, or start up my own businesses or something like that. Second, as thinking about the education about children, that I was really thinking that should I pursue that develop the methodology for my son or money. And after like about a couple of years of thinking and kind of like a pondering a lot, now I decided formally to move on to the education field and develop the educational methodology for my son, to teach my son. He's in he's gonna be in grade 10 now, and he's doing well, I think that a lot better than what I thought in the school setting, because autism kids are not really socialize, but he is able to really catch up, and now he can follow his studies, and even improving his grades in the school settings as well. And of course, that in the baseline is my background. I mean, the education methods that I provide. I teach him, I taught him, and still I'm teaching him about how to study and this stuff. I'm not expert in all the fields, and only the thing I can tell you is that this methodology is methodology. That means that you can choose any topics going in and apply it. Then you can actually see that how to find the answers by yourself. So I taught my son in that way, and especially for the autism kids, they have different thinking style, which Dr. Temple Grandin, who is a biologist and also autism spectrum disorder, and she is one of the top biologists in US, I believe, and she even has a TED talk. Her name is Temple Grandin, and then she says that she's thinking in pictures, not language. Generally, I thinking in language, but some people mixed up a little bit, and more autism people, I believe they are toward a little bit more picture like kind of thinking. So she actually from her presentation, she showed how she's thinking and visualized it. So I started developing this methodology for my son, but in the end, as I provide now all the methodology, the basic methodology that I'm providing, you will see that in the end, it turns out that it works well with other people. It can be generalized for everybody. And of course, during the development, I had to find a part-time job to support financially to maintain my living. So I started teaching in one of the downtown private university in downtown Vancouver. So, but in the end, when I saw that it can be generalized, then at that time that I wanted to more like devote into the completion of the methodology. So I stopped teaching at private university and solely just putting my energy on to the development of generalizing it. And starting like last year, I started organizing everything into some of the some booklet formats, and then started merging them into it. And then methodology, I just need to just refine some of them. And I need to test it to see how it works in the either any type of classes. So what I did is I went back to somehow at the coincidence. It was coincident. The former colleagues of me teaching together in the same university asked me if I wanted to come back to the university for the teaching, and I said yes. And then I took that chance to test for the students in the university setting. It is a small university, so testing is very relatively straightforward. And I found that students can actually learn a lot of knowledge building. It is building concepts. I don't say that it is knowledge building, because simply knowing and the concept, building concept is two different things. I'm gonna explain why shortly in this lecture. So I went back and tested it, and then I saw that the student writing is improving, because this is methodology. It makes brain actually think. The writing skills and then presentation skills and describing skills, everything is involved in that. So everything, just like you can think of this is as a one in all package for the education. So if you are having difficulties in the learning and teaching or something like that, you'll find all the information in these lectures that I'm providing. But this time I'm gonna only provide the basic, very basic training materials because it requires some skills to build to go next level. But still, with the basics, you will see how powerful it is for you if you are able to adapt and then use it, and then you keep trying it. Then, if you are students, then you will really change your life in the school. If you are person that either running a company or something, that you will see that how this methodology can guide you to develop the project and then carry on. Okay, so it's kind of a long story of me, but this is what I have gone through, and then now formally starting from this year, a couple of conferences I went, that I formally like and officially putting it out there, and now this one of the conferences that I presented and provided a workshop asked me to write a paper, so I'm in the process of writing the paper as well. Now, the booklets are almost ready. So once you are done with this, then you can probably in about a month or so, you will be able to download these booklets from my website. And what you can do is you can actually use as a reference, putting it onto next to you, and then using your topics, and then you can just apply the methodology and follow the step-by-step guidance. Then you will be able to really develop your thinking skills. At the same time, you will be able to build concepts, which will be very the powerful tool that for your study, for whatever that you are doing. The topics can be changing anything. Even because the university that I teach is more likely MBA focused, and then initially I gave the workshop, there were just students from MBA. I showed them how to deal with their topics in there. But generally, that all these topics, the example topics, are science-based because I'm from the science. But this is where it comes to where the consultation and the is coming from. So basically, if you are having some topics that you are interested in, if it is businesses or art or science, other science field, or anything that economics or whatever philosophy or whatever that the topic is coming in, then if you are not able to really develop the study material by yourself, then it's the consultation is from the PonderEd, through the PonderEd, the consultation I provide is what I can do with the topics. And so I provide seminars, consultation, and I also planning to providing actual classes and separate from other educational body. You can actually build the methodology, and I'm thinking about starting with online classes and something like that. So I haven't officially started, but probably aiming for the next year, sometime next year for the classes. But for now, consultation, or if you are an education sector, then we can develop the project together and then apply for your the kind of like research in your field as well. Of course, in that case, that we have to apply for the fundings together and then have to go from there. Okay, now that's pretty much it. And then let me start with this thought process background information first. Now, the evolution of brain, I have to, as I mentioned, that my development of the methodology is based on the theory that I made, which is I called an evolution of brain and educational method. Actually, it is a co-evolution because brain and educational methods, they are evolved together. And I categorize into 4 different groups, which is the number 1 is right here, understanding-based education. Second is goal-oriented education. And third one is curiosity-based thinking. This is thinking, not education, because I'm gonna talk about it with more details. And this is me, thought process-based education. This is my development. Okay, I'm gonna go one by one, and then I'll give you a little more details. So first, understanding-based education. What does it look like? So as you can see, the slides are made from the graphical. I mean, some of the it's not real photos. It is actually painting that one of the artists that did it solely for my educational material presentation. So now this is the first step of brain evolution. That means that when brain is evolving, we can easily see it. Like on this slide, that lychee, well, many people probably likes this lychee, but it is actually containing toxic to make people can sick. And the first brain function is like this. When you eat lychee or some fruits or any food that is very, very toxic or poisonous, then you can get sick or die even. And if you are eating something like this apple, then well, you will get energy, and then it is good to eat, and this is not good to eat. This is bad, you should avoid it, you should eat apple. So shouldn't, and edible and not edible, or should do this, shouldn't do this. This is good to eat, that is bad to eat. Something like this separate, a black and white kind of concept is built from here, and this is what we call knowledge. Because we understand that that is toxin is in there, so toxic food that you shouldn't eat it, and then you know that that toxic fruit, what is the toxic, which makes you sick. Now, one, this is a knowledge that you have, and another thing is you understand the result. So you see that what happens if you eat something healthier food, that you can be energetic, you can do whatever that you wanted to do, and then you can be active. But if you get sick or even you die, then you can actually see two different extreme results, which is understanding. So human learns gaining knowledge by understanding. Probably the on the side that because of the video that it's not showing up on the slide, but well, basically gaining knowledge by understanding. Okay, understanding the result. So this is a primitive brain function that evolved together with the brain. As soon as brain emerged, then now that's how the brain processes the information. Good to eat, bad to eat, or something like that, and gaining the knowledge. Because of this is one of the reasons that the brain is getting the information out of it. More to know has higher chance to survive. Right? Is this only for the human? Let's take a look at this monkey's case. In the jungle, it is known that monkeys actually have very sophisticated signaling system. Some people even think that the monkeys are as smart as human. Yeah. So now what that means is that monkeys actually separate eagles from, you can actually see from here that the leopard or jaguar kind of things is approaching in here. The monkeys can have a separate signal that calling eagle as an eagle and the jaguar as a jaguar. That means monkeys know what's an eagle, they have knowledge, and monkeys understand what the consequence is when they are being caught. And monkeys use a signal. And little ones learn how to use the signal, and as they grow up, they use the signal. What is different from So what's the difference from human learning, from the knowledge-based, like this is good to eat, that's bad to eat, and then no understand the result? There's no difference in here. When it comes to the teaching, we teach in exactly the same way. When there's an apple, we teach, okay, this is good to eat. Yes, you can have it. You should have it. This is very good. It'll make you feel energetic, it'll make you feel good, and it'll make you very energetic. If it comes to something like toxic fruit, then you will go like, no, don't eat it. You shouldn't eat it. This is toxic. So you have to learn, this is not something that you don't want to eat. So we teach in the same way. Is this human only? If you look at the other animals, how they are taking care of their babies, you will see this is the same way as the other animals do. So understanding-based learning and teaching is experience-based. And once you experienced something, then you realize. So it's experience and realization-based and these are the key functions. So if you have the opportunity to listen to some of the educators and some go to the conference, which I went there, and this time, and then even some of the presenters talk about this experience-based learning, and then they were saying that we should teach kids with more experience, so that they teach kids to have the experience, build the experience, so that they can gain the knowledge. So experience-based knowledge building, that's what they were saying. But this is primitive brain function. Okay, I'm going to show you that the why in a second. And it is effective when connected with the real life cases. Of course, that when you see someone or something get sick, some animals get sick, or someone get really sick, then you realize it. That information is just stay in your brain, and then you will see that that fruit isn't the one that you wanted to eat, and this is good to eat. That information will stay in your brain very, very long time. And this is a basic education method for all animals with brain. Okay. So basically, it's not for the human. All animals with brain have a certain level of the education method, learning and teaching in this way. So they know what to eat, they know what should avoid, and they teach in the same way. But the real issues with this method is with the brain. Generally, what we try to do is develop the brain so that we can process the information and get the results out of some analysis of the data. But when it comes to the brain, with this methodology, it doesn't really support to develop the brain function. In fact, it's the other way around. Because once you understand and know something, think about yourself, from your experience. Did you use brain further to find some more? Or your brain stopped thinking right there as soon as you understand and know something? Probably as soon as you understand and know something, your brain stopped thinking. So it's like education in focusing on this knowledge building and based on the understanding, experience based ones. Of course, the experience is more likely when kids learners are experienced, then they will have interest, and as they increase interest, then they can move a little further. But generally, for the people who are interested in knowing something more and more, then, well, this method works a little bit. But if you look around and then in the entire school, and how many kids are enjoying and interested in learning some subjects that were being taught in the school, probably not that many. So most of the kids will falling into the students will falling into this category. So basically, like understanding one of the concept, they know, and brain stops. So one knowledge they build, brain stops, and another one to build, brain stops thinking, and another one stops, and constantly go stop. That means this understanding-based education is like you're driving in a traffic jam. You just constantly go stop, repeating the go stop. And think about what it could do in terms of the brain. It will stress brain a lot. This is why students are stressed in the school. Their brain is literally under pressure because of the knowledge, and then think about how much knowledge that they have to deal with in these days. And that doesn't end there. Okay, when you wanted to learn something, then for example, let's say I wanted to learn, I started my business in fishing, and I wanted to learn about the fishing spots, and I have to find someone who knows more, who has more experience. So I go there and then I ask the person saying that, hey, would you be able to teach me where to fish and how to fish? Yeah, I could ask. Now, when I did it, then now that person says, okay, if you pay me like about few hundred tens of $1,000 or something like that to learn all these spots that from my experience, then yes, I can teach you. So let's say I decide to learn by paying the money of like about $10,000 or something like that. But somehow, let's say I made that person upset, angry, then what would happen? That person wouldn't teach me even though I need to pay more. Well, if I'm doing the for going for the fishing for the living, probably I don't have much of the money. Probably I'm spending a lot of money for the just for the learning. But still, with that payment, and even though I increase the payment, if that person is upset and angry at me, then that person is not going to teach me anymore. So what happens? Now, as a learner, to learn some knowledge, I have to make them happy. I have to please them. I have to follow their orders. I have to obey them. So this is basically a ranking system of the pyramid structure of a human society is born. Generally, animal kind of kingdom is the pyramid structure is based on the physical strength. But in the humans, well, there are physical strengths in some of the parts, but most of them are based on this brain function. Well, knowledge-wise, in because knowledge itself, if as long as there's someone who has the knowledge and someone who wanted to learn the knowledge, then that means that they have to really there's a relationship between these two people as a the higher rank and lower rank. So basically, they have to obey. And this is not like they are forcing these people. These people, even though they don't force them, these people just automatically just kneel down and obey the one with the power, knowledge. So this makes the people passive. But if you think about if you wanted to move on to the top of the pyramid, then you have to have your confidences and then you have to have courage and everything. This one makes people just kneel down and then stay in the lower classes. So this is why the richer people get richer and poorer people get poorer because they're emotionally they're just suppressed so that they don't really move forward, and that initial point is starting from right here because they're looking for the knowledge from the knowledge of a people. And it's not just a matter of the learners, it's a matter of the educators as well. Society demands thinker. If you look at the advertisement for the hiring some of the people from out there, then you will see that so they are looking for someone who can develop a project and carry out the project and think and so who can negotiate and something like that. But the separating these people that based on the thinking skill is not easy. For example, let's say exams. In the schools generally provide the exams and see that how many percentage they get. They get the answer right, right? This examination only can check knowledge. It doesn't really reflect brain function because sometimes you can even pick randomly and then you still fall into the if it is true and false questions, you still have chance of the 50% to get, right? So exams doesn't really reflect knowledge, and more knowledge kind of like implies that they could have the thinking processes developed a little bit but not all of them, right? So it doesn't really show them. So what education field did is that they put the writings, essay writing in the measurement. So another layer. But problem is, it's not effective because there's a similarity issues. This is very simple. Let's say I have this cell phone in here, smartphone in here. Let's say someone asks the to write something about this cell phone. Then what students generally do, you think about what you will write about this cell phone. You probably go like, okay, what is function is right there, and then this has this function, and you can use this as a for something like emailing, and then you can you can do the SNS with it, or you can navigate, and then you can watch YouTube and blah blah blah. You can do everything with it. You can write it, right? But think about it. The writings that you are the essay you wrote about the cell phone, compare with the ones that are actually provided by the factory, that the designers, what would happen? Probably that information that from the manuals have a lot more details, more than you have. Then, even though you write the functions and everything that with the essay type and from what you think and from what you use with the cell phone, but still your writing is falling into the it doesn't really get outside. It doesn't go outside of the manuals or the developers. And let's say this cell phone, the topic is this cell phone, and then let's say this is given to like about thousands of people to write same topic about it. Then what could happen? If I write it, other people can write the similar things. Probably there will be differences in the verb, there's adjectives, and these can be different, but all these real main functions will be similar. So similarity really kicks in. So now, and think about entire world, how many students are learning with same subject, same field. If it is a science, biology, then probably like about millions of students are all over the world learning with the similar textbooks and the similar knowledge. So students' writings are all similar. One of the quick example is that this one of the this university that I teach downtown in Vancouver. I got an email once that one of the faculty is saying that we cannot trust the Turnitin report solely, and we cannot not trusting it. We cannot rely on the Turnitin report, the similarity report, when we are grading students. That's what the professor was kind of claiming. The reason that professor is claiming that is that because the professor actually checked the wrote cover letter by him or herself. I don't really know the gender of that professor that wrote the cover letter and uploaded the Turnitin, and the the, from the email the person says that the similarity comes up like more than 30% or close to 30% or something like that, and saying that this is my own writing, but still showing up 30%, about 30% plus minus. I don't exactly remember, but so we shouldn't rely on Turnitin report. That was what the email says. But from my viewpoint, it's totally different. If this similarity comes up like a 30 or 40% or something like that, that means that your writing is not different from others. That means your knowledge is limited. Basically, your writing, you are not thinking different from others. Because of that, now education is turning into the business. The reason is because now teachers, when educators try to develop some of the methodology, then they have to see how students are learning. They have to actually literally have to see that the progress of the students, process of the students learning, that interior step by step. But similarity is masking this students' thinking skill. So because of that, now educators, what they can do is nothing. They try to develop it, but that doesn't really work. They have to really put a lot of effort to do something like that. It requires like a research team. As I went to the conference on the educations, that a lot of research teams are really delving into the methodology to develop it. So something like this research team is really needed. Individual educators, they cannot really do, because they cannot really see how students are really seeing it. So basically what they do, initially what I see is that, I mean, like close to almost every teachers and educators are very excited when they are started teaching in the beginning. But problem is, when time comes and when as they started teaching, now their enthusiasm reduces because they cannot really see how to develop it, how to change the education. So it reduced over time, and later on they just go like, what can I do? And they started using like about 5-10-year-old lecture note to provide the students the class. Even one time I saw when I was in Korea, that I saw a professor just reading textbook and translating into Korean, and that was the entire class. Then why don't I just learn English and then just read it by myself? If the class is going like that, and the university they asks a lot of money for that, right? So some of the educators, a friend of mine, saying that now in these days education is like a entirely like a customer service. Basically, it turns into the business. There's one way to get out of this limit of the knowledge, something like this. I use Wikipedia because Wikipedia, as long as I cite it, then copyright issues are not really there. So I use only the Wikipedia. That's only the reason I'm using the Wikipedia. But you can say anything. That's the one of the reasons here. Okay. So now, learn by experience means that you have to take a risk. For example, the Columbus, that when he sailed out to cross the ocean, that he had to risk his life. Well, entire ship had to be, the people has to risk their life, and if they were successful, then reward is just like a out of expectation. But if you failed, lose everything. Because of that, it is very difficult for the people to go out there and learn everything with experience, because it is dangerous. If you actually go out there and then try to fish or sail out to the ocean, there's always like a high risk of the facing some unexpected things. Well, in these days, technology makes it a little bit easier, but still. Because of this the kind of like a gambling, either you go out there and then you success, then you get a lot of the uneven, like a reward is huge. If you fail, you lose everything. This basic instinct of the brain function is deeply just like stored inside of the brain. Now gambling issue comes in. Gambling is because they show that you can get a lot of money if you are successful. That was the what happens in the, when you go out there, risk your life and do something, then you can get a lot more rewards from there. Now that because of the human brain is engraved in with it. Now gambling, that they just made it like a gradually falling into it, so that you invest like about $10, $100, or $1,000, so you don't feel that you are risking your life, but you kind of like see that the once you hit the jackpots, then you get like millions of dollars, so you gradually falling into it. And once you falling into it, then it's gonna be very difficult to get out of it, because this is a primitive brain function that came together with the brain from the beginning of the brain evolution. So it's like millions of evolution processes that are dealing with this gambling issues. Now, let me move on to goal-oriented education. Actually, I'm gonna make this goal-oriented education into separate video, because this is getting longer and longer.